I drop my hospital badge on the counter, still wearing blue scrubs after a 12-hour shift. My shoulders ache, my back is on fire, but dinner can't wait. Emily will be hungry. The freezer door sticks before opening. Chicken tenders, frozen vegetables, that'll do. I toss them onto the counter, already reaching for the microwave. Hannah? Richard's voice drifts in from the dining room. Too calm. That's how he always sounds before lowering the hammer. Just a minute, I call back. I slide the chicken into the microwave, punch in 3 minutes, and listen to the low hum. My feet shuffle across the floor, compression socks dragging against tile. My chest feels tight, as though my body already knows what's coming. When I step into the dining room, my heart stutters. Richard and Linda sit at opposite ends of the oak table like they're hosting Thanksgiving. But it isn't Thanksgiving. The table is covered in papers. White sheets spread neatly over scarred wood. Emily's wheelchair is pulled up on the side, her hands folded in her lap. She doesn't look up. Sit, Richard says. No greeting. No how was your day, just a command. I sink into the empty chair. The air feels heavy, as if all the oxygen has been sucked out. What's going on? Richard slides a stack of papers toward me. His silver ring flashes under the overhead light. His mustache twitches like a signal before a storm. Your mother and I are getting older, he says. It's time to formalize Emily's care. The words land like stones in my chest. I glance down. Caregiver agreement stares back at me in bold print. Further down, a name leaps off the page. Responsible party. Hannah Cole. My own name, again and again, stamped through the pages. I don't understand, I whisper. It's simple, Linda says, voice smooth but merciless. You'll cash out your retirement to create a fund for Emily. Then you'll pay $2,000 every month to cover her expenses. The room tilts slightly. $2,000 every month? You make $70,000 a year, Richard says, leaning forward, fingers steepled like a judge. That's more than $4,000 a month. We're only asking for half. My loans, my rent, I can't. Don't hide behind excuses, Linda snaps. The softness is gone from her voice, replaced with sharpness honed over years. You've got $60,000 in your 401k. After taxes, that's at least $40,000. You can use it for your sister. My hands tremble against the table. I press them flat, trying to anchor myself. This feels sudden. Nothing sudden about it, Richard replies. His tone is ice. You've been responsible for Emily since the accident. Now it's just being put in writing. The words legally binding jump out at me, glowing like a warning. Richard pushes a pen across the table. Sign today. We'll file tomorrow. My chest tightens. Images flood back. 16 years old, braiding Emily's hair in her hospital bed, promising through tears that I'd never leave her, that I'd make it right somehow. Across the table, Emily's eyes meet mine for the briefest moment, then slide away. She doesn't say a word. Why me? My voice is small. Because you're the reason she's in that wheelchair, Richard says. The blade of guilt twists deeper, cutting the air from my lungs. I've lived under this weight for more than a decade, but tonight the words land different. Something inside me shifts. It's been 11 years, I whisper. And now you want it in writing? The arrangement has always been clear, Linda says, smoothing an invisible crease from the tablecloth. You fed stray cats instead of walking Emily to the bus stop. She tried to catch the bus at the next stop. She ran across the street. The truck couldn't stop. She's paralyzed because of you. Her words are precise, rehearsed. I've heard them countless times. They've shaped me, broken me, defined me. But tonight something pushes back. I need time to think. My voice steadies against the tremor in my chest. There's nothing to think about, Richard says. Sign now, Linda adds, her voice sharp as glass. Or we'll tell everyone the truth. The hospital, Pastor Graham, your friends, they'll all know you're abandoning your sister. The threat slams into me. They know exactly what matters to me. The respect at the hospital, the image of sacrifice I've built, the admiration from the church. You wouldn't, I say, though I don't believe it. Try us, Richard warns. His voice drops low, dangerous. The pen waits in front of me. My hand hovers, shaking. Every future I thought I had collapsing into a single signature. Then I set it down. Tomorrow. Richard's jaw locks, but I'm already standing. My legs feel weak, my breath uneven. I stumble to my room, shut the door, twist the lock. My body slides down the wall until I hit the floor. My chest heaves, hands trembling too violently to type. I scroll my contacts until I find the name I thought I'd buried years ago. The phone rings 3 times. Hannah? The voice is surprised, warm, familiar. Rachel Dawson. It's been forever. Are you okay? Tears spill hot and fast, breaking something loose inside me. They want everything. My retirement, my paycheck. I don't know what to do. Slow down, Rachel says, her voice steady, calm, already shifting into lawyer mode. Start at the beginning. Between sobs, I tell her about the papers, the threats, the ultimatum. She doesn't interrupt. When I finish, silence stretches long enough for my heart to thud in my ears. Then she asks the question that steals my breath. Hannah, have you ever seen the actual police report from Emily's accident? The room seems to tilt again. No, I whisper. I was 16, devastated. My parents handled everything. I never asked. What if it wasn't your fault after all? The line goes quiet. I sit frozen, the possibility crackling in the dark corners of my mind. 3 days later, I sit in a coffee shop far from the house. The clatter of cups and low murmur of voices surround me. I grip a ceramic mug with trembling hands. Steam curls upward, fading into nothing. Like the life I thought I knew, Rachel appears sliding into the booth across from me. Her briefcase lands on the table with a dull thud. The wild-haired college friend I once knew is gone. In her place, a lawyer in a charcoal suit, hair pulled back tight, eyes sharp as glass. You look terrible, Rachel says. No sugarcoating. That's the Rachel I remember. 12-hour shifts and avoiding my family will do that. I force a smile, though it feels like a grimace. Haven't been back except to sleep since, you know. The latches on her briefcase snap open. Metal clicks echo louder than they should. I found the police report, she says. The words hang heavy between us. My pulse quickens as she slides a manila folder across the table. Its edges are crisp, official. It could hold either my damnation or my freedom. How bad is it? My voice sounds like a child's. Rachel doesn't answer. She simply opens the folder and turns it toward me. Read. The black type blurs before my eyes. I blink, forcing myself to focus. Location of accident. Westridge Road in Maple, 3.8 miles from our neighborhood. Time 3:42 p.m. Vehicle, 1998 Honda motorcycle. Driver, Kyle Mercer, age 17. Passenger, Emily Cole, age 14. My breath catches. This isn't possible. I flip through the pages, hands shaking. Witness statements leap out. Female passenger was laughing, arms wrapped around driver's waist. Motorcycle tried to beat the yellow. Delivery truck had the right of way. My stomach drops. They told me she missed her bus because I wasn't there. Rachel's gaze doesn't waver. They lied. The air between us crackles with something dark and undeniable. Everything I thought I knew was built on a lie. They told me Emily missed the bus. The words lodge in my throat now like a stone. They lied, Hannah, Rachel Dawson says, fingers covering mine across the table. Warm, steady, real. They lied about everything. The coffee shop feels small, like the walls are leaning in. 11 years of guilt pressed down on me. 11 years of late shifts, of sleeping in shifts between school and hospital visits, of carrying a private shame that turned into my whole life. If this is true, every sacrifice, every lonely hour was built on a lie. Emily was joyriding with her secret boyfriend, Rachel says quietly. Her lawyer voice doesn't shout. It cuts clean. Kyle Mercer, captain of the JV basketball team. Your parents forbade them from seeing each other. Remember? Too old. Too reckless. Pieces rattle loose in my head. Late-night phone calls, a laugh in the dark, A text suddenly at 11 p.m., a new interest in basketball games. Things I'd buried under duty and shame now lay bright and sharp. Multiple witnesses confirm it, Rachel continues, flipping pages with steady hands. Emily skipped the bus. She met Kyle. They were driving to the lake. They ran the light. The world tilts. My stomach collapses. I push up, too fast, and bolts for the bathroom. My breakfast empties into the cold toilet. I stand over porcelain and gasp, hands on the sink, watching my own face. Hollow eyes stare back. I touch my cheeks. They feel thin, like paper, a ghost made of other people's stories. When I come back, my hands are steadier, but my head is light. Rachel has ordered fresh tea. The cup steams between us. The folder sits open like a verdict. Police report, hospital records, testimony. All the things I had never been allowed to see because I was too emotional, Rachel says. They closed you out. They knew from the start, didn't they? I whisper. A cold anger begins to rise. Rachel nods. I spoke with the nurse who was in the trauma room when Emily arrived. Your parents began shaping the story while doctors worked to save her. Richard started saying you were responsible right then, in the ER. The betrayal hits like a blow. How do you trust the people who raised you when they lie about the one thing that defines you? Money, control, those words float in the air. Rachel pulls out more documents, thumping them gently onto the table. Your grandmother left you $20,000 when she died, she says. Remember? I remember. I remember crying in Emily's hospital room, signing papers with my father's hand heavy on my shoulder. For your sister's future, he had said. I watch a memory like a film, my pen shaking, nurses moving, the cheap hospital light. We used that money, Rachel says. 3 months after the accident, they borrowed it for emergency expenses. But Emily's care was covered by insurance. The checks don't add up. You made me delay college, I say, quiet and distant. They said Emily needed me. So I took night classes, worked days, watched her between shifts. My voice carries the fatigue of 11 years. And your nursing degree? Rachel asks softly, her gaze even. Who pushed you toward that? My chest tightens. Linda had said nursing made sense, practical, caring, something to keep Emily safe. Nursing would keep me close. But nurses earn less than the engineering track I wanted. Less money, less freedom, less future. Rachel places another document in front of me. Your starting salary in engineering would have been nearly double what you make now. The numbers prick at something else. Calculation, intent, the guilt trips, the small daily manipulations. They read differently now. They planned this, I say, the words steadying. That meeting, when they asked about my 401, why they kept prodding. Rachel nods. Without the caregiver agreement, they have no legal claim. They were building a paper trail in case they needed leverage. They're afraid, Hannah. Afraid of what? I snap. Fear tastes bitter. Losing their roof? Rachel says bluntly. They're underwater. Second mortgage, credit cards, medical bills, insurance refused. Richard lost his job 6 months ago. Your mother's breakdown at the church fundraiser? Not about Emily, about money. It should soften me. Instead, something cold and precise forms under the anger. How long do you carry a life built on lies before you can see the shape of it? Richard never told me. He never allowed himself to share the fear. The public man, the one who led prayers at church, who smiled at fundraisers, is a mask for panic. People do desperate things. Manipulation becomes religion in a household that needs money. Emily, did she know? I ask, voice breaking. The thought of her complicit cuts deeper than any betrayal. She remembers, Rachel says gently. She was 14, old enough to hold pieces of the truth. You said she never spoke. Maybe she kept quiet because she was scared. Maybe your parents told her a story to keep her safe in her mind. That cuts the deepest. 11 years of quiet compliance from the person I swore to protect. Did she stay silent to protect them? To protect herself? The idea turns my stomach. Rachel's face softens, then hardens with resolve. They're not cartoon villains, Hannah. Fear makes people do cruel things. Your mother believes Emily's future requires your sacrifice. That belief doesn't make it right. No, I say. The word is flat, firm. It doesn't. She closes the folder with a small, decisive motion. The good news, if you want to call it that, is they have no legal case. The statute of limitations passed years ago. Even if the accident had been your fault, which it wasn't, they can't force this legally. Relief rolls through me, shy and brittle. For the first time in days, the weight that lived in my shoulders shifts. Hope dares to appear. So what do we do? I ask. The question is a challenge now. Rachel lists quietly, fingers counting off points like steps. We gather evidence, witness statements. The boy, Kyle Mercer, we get his testimony. Your Aunt Laura overheard your parents in the hospital. Get her to say what she heard. We need anyone who can confirm Emily skipped the bus by choice. I talk to a woman who saw them laughing on Westridge Road. We build a timeline. We show the money trail. Your grandmother's money, mortgage records, your parents' job history. We find motive and we prove they lied. The plan is surgical. It's also enormous. I feel small and huge at once. Kyle, where is he? I ask, because memory is a sudden bright thing. I think he still lives in Denver. He coaches at Westridge High now. Perfect, Rachel says. Her eyes flash. And I know someone who can help. She pulls out her phone and taps the screen. Marcus Bennett, investigative reporter. He broke that story about the family who faked a child's illness last year. He has contacts, a nose for this kind of mess. The idea lands like thunder. We're not just filing papers. We're pulling a house of cards that's been propped up by fear and falsehood. This will destroy my family. The thought hits like a physical pain. Rachel watches my face. Her expression softens. Your family destroyed itself the moment they made this choice, she says. This isn't revenge. It's freedom. For you. For Emily. Will Emily hate me? Will she feel betrayed by the truth? I picture her face, soft, blank, the way she avoids my eyes when guilt is spoken aloud. Change frightens those who depend on the known. She might hate me at first, I say. She might be angry for losing the structure she's known. But the truth will set us both free. Rachel reaches for my hand and holds it like she means it. You don't have to do this alone. You have me, Marcus, Aunt Laura, people who want the truth. For the first time in 11 years, my shoulders loosen a fraction. The path ahead is thick and overgrown, but a trail exists now. I straighten. Let's do it. We start making calls from that booth. Rachel dials Marcus. He answers sharp, curious, then calm when she lays out the bones of the case. He wants documents. He wants interviews. He smells a story, one that could tear open a small-town wound. I can feel the magnitude of what we're planning. This will not be quiet. This will not be kind. After the call, I get online. My fingers hover over Kyle Mercer's profile. Wedding photos pop up. Him in a tux, a bride with a dark braid, 2 small kids laughing on a porch with white columns. Ordinary, unmarked. No hint of the day he was in a motorcycle that changed my life. I send a short message. Were you with Emily the day of her accident? The phone buzzes within minutes. A number I don't have saved. The voice on the other end is deeper, older, but a sliver of the boy I once imagined is still there. Hannah? It's Kyle. I can't breathe. 11 years of guilt pour out of me in an ugly, stumbling rush. You were there. You were with Emily. Tell me, what happened? He doesn't answer right away. On the line is a pause long enough to drown in. Then he speaks, low and shaking. I've waited 11 years for someone to ask. I couldn't say before. I thought... His voice breaks. I thought it would hurt her. I thought it would ruin lives. But I can't carry it anymore. The words hang like a cliff. I don't know what he will say next. What he reveals could free me, or shatter everything in a new way. The phone feels unreal in my hand. This call will change my life. And in the quiet that follows, the coffee shop chatter becomes a distant ocean. I hold the line as Kyle begins to talk. His voice cracks through the phone, rough with the weight of something carried too long. Emily begged me not to tell anyone she was on my motorcycle. She didn't want to wear the helmet, said it would mess up her hair for the party that weekend. The air leaves my lungs in a rush. The world tilts. I grip the cafe table, knuckles whitening, trying to keep myself from toppling into the abyss opening beneath me. Your parents showed up at the hospital while you were getting coffee. Kyle continues, each word breaking like glass underfoot. They cornered me. Told me if I ever mentioned the motorcycle, they'd press charges for endangering a minor. I was 17, scared out of my mind. And when they started spinning the story about the bus stop and the cats, I went along with it. My voice sounds foreign when I finally speak. Why now? Why are you telling me this after all these years? Silence on his end, then a ragged exhale. Because it's eating me alive. My wife saw your message. She's been telling me for years to come clean. And... He hesitates. Emily knows I'm calling you. We've stayed in touch. The words cut deeper than I thought possible. She knew? My voice splinters. All this time. My sister knew? The shame feels heavier than the years of guilt. Will you sign a statement about what really happened? My question trembles with desperation. I'm already typing it up, Kyle says quickly. I'll get it notarized tomorrow. You'll have it in your hands. I end the call before my voice betrays me. My hand shakes so hard I nearly drop the phone. Rachel Dawson reaches across the table, her grip firm on my shoulder. That's one more piece of evidence, Hannah. Solid. Now, let's call your Aunt Laura. When Aunt Laura answers, her words tumble out too easily, as though she has been waiting for years to let them go. I was bringing flowers to Emily's hospital room. She begins, her voice trembling through the line. When I heard them, your parents, they were standing in the hallway. I'll never forget it. I squeeze the phone tighter, bracing myself. Linda said, "Don't let anyone know she was with that boy. We'll say Hannah was supposed to walk her to the bus." And then Richard replied, "Hannah's always been responsible. She'll accept it was her fault." Her voice cracks. I should have said something. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I thought I was protecting the family, but I was just helping them destroy you. Tears burn my eyes. Thank you, Aunt Laura. Thank you for telling me now. By Sunday afternoon, the evidence is stacked and heavy in my bag. The police report, Kyle's promise of a sworn statement, Aunt Laura's testimony, and my own memories finally aligning with the truth. I time my arrival at the house for when Emily is gone, safe at physical therapy with her weekend caregiver. It's only my parents and me. The living room feels smaller than I remember, suffocating even. The floral curtains are drawn tight, the air stale with the faint scent of furniture polish and something metallic underneath. Fear, maybe. Richard Cole sits in his recliner, the Sunday paper spread open but unread. Linda Cole is perched on the couch, back stiff, eyes sharp the moment she sees me holding the folder. "What's going on?" Richard asks, suspicion threading his voice. I don't sit. I don't smile. I simply say, I know the truth about the accident. The words drop into the room like a stone into still water, sending ripples across their carefully maintained façade. It happened miles from the bus stop, I continue, steady now, on Kyle Mercer's motorcycle. The color drains from Richard's face, his knuckles gripping the recliner arms until they turn white. For once, the man who has always had an answer, a command, a rebuke, has nothing. But Linda recovers quickly, smoothing her skirt as though this were some trivial misunderstanding. We were protecting Emily from scandal. You were old enough to handle the responsibility. Her voice is calm, rational, cold, as though destroying one daughter to protect another was a perfectly reasonable exchange. You made me believe I ruined my sister's life. My voice doesn't rise, but something in its steadiness makes them both flinch. For 11 years, I've carried that guilt. 11 years of penance for a crime I never committed. Richard leans forward, desperation cutting through his usual composure. It doesn't change your obligation to your sister. She needs you. I never abandoned Emily, I answer, words rising from someplace buried deep, someplace they never managed to reach. And I never will. But I'm not signing those papers. Not tomorrow. Not ever. Their silence is deafening. I turn without waiting for their response. My back straightens, my steps measured. I open the front door, and with a quiet click, not a slam, but a final surgical incision, I sever the hold they've had on me. Rachel's car idles at the curb, headlights glowing against the dimming evening. She sees my face as I slide into the passenger seat and her eyes widen. You look lighter. That's when the tears break. Not tears of pain or guilt, but tears of release. Years of poison spilling out of me, leaving me raw but free. It worked, I manage between sobs. They admitted everything. This is just the beginning, Rachel says, pulling away from the curb, her voice steady as steel. We're going to set things right. My phone buzzes with a text. It's Aunt Laura. My guest room is ready whenever you need it. I should have spoken up years ago. Then another call, this time from Marcus Bennett, his voice urgent. I've been digging into your parents' finances. There's proof they've been funneling your money into their mortgage, not just Emily's care. Some of it even went to personal luxuries, a fishing boat, a timeshare in Florida. This isn't just manipulation. This is fraud. As Dad drives us away from the house where I spent 11 years imprisoned by guilt, I watch it shrink in the side mirror. A place that once defined me now looks small, brittle, irrelevant. For the first time, I let myself ask, do I wait, give them time to confess, or do I push forward? The answer is clear. No more waiting, no more lies. Monday morning. Rachel's office. The bitter taste of cold coffee coats my mouth as I stand before the whiteboard that stretches across the wall. The timeline of my life is mapped in sticky notes, 11 years of manipulation reduced to paper and ink. Each note a wound, each scribbled reminder a scar. We need to anticipate their next move, Rachel says, capping the marker with a sharp click. Her charcoal suit is immaculate, her voice measured but unyielding. They won't roll over just because you confronted them. I nod. My training as a nurse kicks in. Assess, evaluate, plan. Richard always counterattacks when cornered, I say, tracing the notes. In 2018, when I asked about Grandma's inheritance, he told Pastor Graham I was bitter about my Christian duty. In 2021, when I tried moving out, he claimed Emily had a medical setback that required full-time care. Every time I've tried to reclaim my life, they've weaponized her condition against me. The door opens, and Marcus Bennett strides in, a stack of manila folders in his arms. He drops them onto the conference table with a solid thump. You were right, he says, flipping open the first file. I tracked every contribution you made against Emily's actual medical expenses for the past 5 years. Less than 40% went to her care. My stomach twists as I scan the spreadsheets. Where did the rest go? Mortgage payments, credit card debt, and here? He taps a highlighted section. A fishing boat, bought 3 years ago, and this, payments to a Florida timeshare since 2020. The room feels colder. My parents weren't just manipulating me, they were living off me, thriving off the guilt they manufactured. Rachel meets my eyes. This isn't just about protecting yourself anymore, Hannah. This is about exposing a pattern of exploitation. They didn't just steal your freedom, they profited from it. I press a trembling hand to the edge of the table. My parents' house of lies is collapsing, and for once, I'm not buried under the rubble. I'm standing clear of it, watching it burn. And I know this is only the beginning. The sting of betrayal is fresh, hot under my skin, but I lock it down. This isn't about being hurt anymore. This is about fraud. This is about facts. We build this case like a patient safety investigation, I tell the room, sounding calmer than I feel. The language is familiar. Documentation, pattern recognition, witness statements. My training gives me a spine of steel where raw emotion would be a liability. Rachel nods. Exactly. Emotional confrontations won't work with manipulators who have practiced this for years. We dismantle their control piece by piece. We move like a small, efficient unit. For hours, we sort, label, and cross-check. Kyle Mercer's written account of the motorcycle ride. The nurse's note about Richard Cole's voice in the trauma bay. Bank statements showing transfers that don't match the medical receipts. Copies of bills for equipment that was never delivered. Receipts for a fishing boat. Paper after paper becomes a map of how they turned my guilt into income. The calm that settles over me is not relief yet. It's focus. I am finally looking at my life as a case file instead of a confession. Marcus Bennett taps his pen against the table. The insurance angle is messy, he says. Claims for equipment that never showed up. Billing for therapy sessions that never happened. That heads toward fraud. Rachel adds, and I spoke with 3 of your colleagues at Denver Memorial. They confirm your exhaustion, sleeping on your feet, showing up after night shifts. Dr. Harriman said he's seen you nodding off during rounds after being up all night. That corroborates the timeline of you juggling shifts and care. A sharp ring at the office cuts through us. Rachel answers. Her face changes, cool and professional, then tight. She hangs up and looks at me. They hired an attorney. My stomach drops. Who? Patricia Lambert, family support specialist, and we just received a formal demand letter. Marcus frowns. That's an escalation. Rachel pulls a printed letter from a folder and slides it toward me. The words are clinical, legal, and cold. Moral obligation, ongoing duty to provide care, immediate financial contribution required, petition for guardianship if demands unmet. The paper smells like threat. My hands start to shake, the first crack in the composure I've forced on myself. Patricia Lambert is known for aggressive tactics. Guardianship. They want to take Emily out of my hands and turn her into a legal lever. No, Rachel says firmly. They can't just take guardianship without cause, but they count on fear. Legal fees will bleed you dry. They hope you'll fold. Marcus studies my face. You okay? I inhale, force my voice steady. They're trying to scare me because they know we have the truth. That means we're close. Determination hardens into something blunt and clear. How far will they go to keep this lie alive? The question hangs heavy. They have built 11 years of deception. They manipulated our church, our neighbors, the hospital staff. They stole money, time, peace. They will not give it up quietly. Neither will I. 3 days later, we sit around Rachel's polished table. The evidence is arranged like the bones of a case. Labeled, chronological, impossible to argue with. The police report sits at the center, official and damning. Kyle Mercer's affidavit is there, signed and notarized. Aunt Laura's statement is typed and sworn. Bank records show deposits and withdrawals, a trail that leads straight to mortgage payments and personal luxuries. Documents marked therapy sessions billed, no service provided, sit in the pile like nails. Is this everything? Rachel asks, scanning our checklist. Every scrap from the last 11 years. I answer, squeezing the folder. I still feel the weight of nights I gave up, the life I postponed. These papers feel like both witness and weapon. Marcus slides a thicker manila folder onto the table. I found something else. He lays it open. Your parents took out a second mortgage 6 months ago, using your name. The room tilts. I never signed anything. My voice is thin. Exactly. Marcus points to a page. The signature on the mortgage documents is a forgery. The bank's forensic examiner confirmed it yesterday. He taps the forgery. Even in print, Dad's heavy hand is visible, the slanted pressure, the final loop that always ends with a fade. My stomach clenches with cold rage. Forged signatures cross the line into criminal. Rachel adds the mortgage papers to the binder with a quiet, grown-up finality. This moves beyond manipulation into fraud and forgery. I stare at the forged marks. Even in that mimicry, Richard's control is stamped on the page. The man who controlled meals, chores, stories, had tried to control my legal identity too. It's obscene. "We filed the restraining order," Rachel says. "That'll keep them from harassing you while we build the case." A line of relief eases through me, but it's thin. They will retaliate. They always did when cornered. Seeing the timeline on the whiteboard, 11 years reduced to arrows and bullet points, strips away the old haze. Each incident is a move in a map of manipulation. When Grandma's inheritance disappeared, when my attempts to leave were undermined, each medical setback used to lock me back in. The pattern is no longer a memory. It's evidence. Emily's medical records are the last critical piece, I say, tapping a file with my name on it. The folder contains specialists' notes, billing codes, therapy schedules. Half the treatments listed were never carried out. The center where they claimed intensive sessions has no record of those visits. They billed for services that never happened. Marcus whistles softly. This isn't a family squabble. This is a fraud ring masked as care. His voice holds a mix of outrage and clinical interest. He has the mind of someone who can smell a story and knows how to pry it open. We're building a narrative that will expose how Mom and Dad turned my guilt into their bank account. I say it aloud. We're not just exposing a lie. We're dismantling a decade of theft. The words feel right in my mouth. That same night, my phone buzzes on the table. Hospital administration. A name on the caller ID makes me pause. I answer. Hannah speaking. Miss Cole, this is Melissa from HR. We need you to come in regarding serious allegations about your professional conduct. The line is businesslike. My stomach drops. What allegations? I ask. The dread is immediate, visceral. Your father called the ethics hotline this morning, Melissa says. He alleges you've been diverting medications to sell for personal gain. We need you here. The accusation steals my breath. Prescription theft. A career-destroying claim. I put the call on speaker so Rachel and Marcus can hear. I will not face this alone. I'll be there in 30 minutes, I say, voice steady by force. I hang up, and the room is suddenly too small. Rachel moves with urgency, gathering documents like an ambulance crew preparing a patient. They found our investigation, and they're striking at your most vulnerable point, your career. I feel the world tilt, but I refuse to fall. My nursing license, my reputation, everything I've built, is the one thing they can use to make me back down. Marcus shakes his head. Desperate move. They hope humiliation will make you cave. I dress in the same crisp scrubs and walk into Denver Memorial with the measured steps of someone who has spent a lifetime in hospital corridors. Janet, my supervisor, sits behind a glass partition with hospital security and HR logs spread in front of her. The medication dispensing records are immaculate. Cameras have documented every access. The accusation unravels fast under the light of the hospital's systems. Janet studies the logs, then looks at me with something like pity. These allegations don't hold, she says quietly. Your dispensing record is clean. We stand by you, Hannah. Go home. Focus on your family. Relief floods me, but it's laced with a cold ember. They tried to burn me. They failed. For now. Back at Rachel's office the next morning, we sit for the final strategy session before going public. The binders stand like armor on the conference table. Marcus has a multimedia presentation queued up. A timeline of manipulative acts, bank transfers animated into red lines, recorded statements juxtaposed with dates the family told different stories. It's methodical. It's unforgiving. We've contacted witnesses, Marcus says. Neighbors who heard arguments, church members who saw Linda's breakdown not as grief, but as stress over money. former therapist who noticed inconsistent records. We have Kyle's affidavit. We have the bank forensics. Rachel points to the whiteboard. We anticipate counterattacks, claims of defamation, petitions for guardianship, character assassination. We will file our complaint the moment we have the last piece notarized. The media? We control that release. We go with the facts, not the emotion. The plan is clinical and brutal. It leaves no room for theatrics. That's the point. We will beat lies with documentation. A knock at the door, and Aunt Laura enters, face pale but resolute. She hands me an envelope full of old letters and notes she'd kept. Things she thought insignificant then, things that now form another strand in the web. I should have said sooner, she whispers. I'm sorry. I take the envelope. The apology is small and late, but it matters. The people who were honest are my lifeline. The people who lied built the prison. We work late into the night. Each file added is a stake driven into the foundation of the lie. Each witness secured is a nail in the coffin. For the first time in 11 years, my hands move not to apologize, but to prepare. Not to atone, but to defend. When I finally walk to my car under the empty streetlights, exhaustion settles into my bones. But beneath it is a new kind of tired, the tired of someone who has fought back and won small victories. The fight ahead will not be easy. They will strike again. They will use every weapon they have, the church, the town's sympathies, the image of a family in crisis. But I have the truth, and with it, a legal team, a journalist who wants the story told, and people who remember the real events. As I drive home, I let myself feel the first small taste of freedom. This case is no longer just mine. It is ours. For the truth. For Emily. For every hour of my life they tried to sell. The path will be messy. It will be loud. But it will be right. The financial evidence alone could bury them. Rachel Dawson closes the binder with a sharp snap, her tone firm. The forged mortgage application gives us more than leverage. It's the rope they tied around their own necks. I let my eyes travel over the stacks of documents spread across the polished table. Weeks of work. Weeks of late nights where grief threatened to drag me under, but discipline pulled me back. What was once guilt now feels different. Lighter. Sharper. The weight that chained me for more than a decade has shifted into something else. Purpose. We're ready, I say, my voice low but steady. It's time to end this. The following Wednesday, the doorbell chimes, pulling me from my thoughts. I smooth the wrinkles from my navy slacks and check my phone. A message from Rachel flashes across the screen. We're in position, stay calm. The words steady me more than I expect. For weeks we've moved like soldiers preparing for war. Evidence gathered, timelines mapped, testimonies notarized. But as I stand in the living room where I grew up, watching relatives file in with downcast eyes, I realize there is no training for this moment. Linda ushers them toward the dining room, her expression composed but brittle at the edges. The space has been transformed into something unnatural. Extra chairs encircle the oak table, each place set with a water glass and notepad, as though grief can be managed like a business meeting. At the head of the table, Dad stands in his Sunday suit, shoulders squared, chin lifted. He radiates authority the way he always has. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, he begins, his voice heavy with rehearsed sincerity. This is difficult, but family matters require family solutions. I scan the faces. Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia, stern and confused. Grace, my mother's sister, lips pressed tight. 2 church elders, familiar from childhood Sundays. Pastor Graham, his Bible laid carefully before him. And beside them, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit, the attorney. And then there's Emily, in her chair at the far end, eyes glued to her folded hands, as if the act of not looking might make her invisible. Richard clears his throat and continues while Linda passes out stapled packets, For those who don't know, Hannah has been responsible for Emily's care since the accident 11 years ago. Recently, she's decided to abandon that responsibility. The words hit like a physical blow, crafted for maximum damage. Murmurs ripple through the room. That's not what's happening, I manage, but Richard lifts his hand. Please, he says, dropping his voice to that false note of fatherly disappointment. Let me finish. He gestures toward Linda, who opens a thick binder. These are just the medical bills from the last 6 months. Without Hannah's financial support, Emily's therapy will stop entirely. Lie. Insurance covers most of those treatments. Richard's voice cracks with manufactured emotion. She makes $70,000 a year as a nurse. We're only asking for $2,000 monthly. She has retirement savings she could use to start a proper care fund. His eyes glisten with on-demand tears, the same trick that silenced me as a child. Uncle Robert turns to me, face carved with disappointment. How could you do this to your sister? The room closes in, air thick with judgment. Pastor Graham clears his throat, his expression grave. Perhaps Christian mediation could resolve this. Hannah, your sister needs you. Surely there's an arrangement that honors your duty. The attorney slides a set of documents into the empty space before me. A simple caregiver agreement. Once signed, Emily's needs will be met. Every eye in the room fixes on me. Pressure thickens. This is their trap. Moral obligation weaponized, community judgment sharpened into a blade. But my phone vibrates in my pocket, the signal we arranged. I rise slowly, surprised by how steady I sound. Before anyone signs anything, I'd like to introduce someone. The doorbell rings. Perfect timing. Linda frowns, irritation bleeding through her polished façade. Who could that be? My attorney, I answer simply, and the journalist who's been helping me investigate what really happened 11 years ago. Richard's hand tightens around his pen. This is a private family matter. It stopped being private when you invited church elders and hired an attorney, I reply. My feet carry me to the door without hesitation. When I open it, Rachel Dawson steps in first, crisp in a charcoal suit, her presence commanding. Behind her, Marcus Bennett enters, press credentials clipped visibly, recorder in hand. And finally, Aunt Laura, younger sister to Linda, who worked at the hospital that day. What is she doing here? Linda demands, rising. Supporting the truth, Aunt Laura says, moving to stand beside me. Pastor Graham's brow furrows as Rachel introduces herself. I'm Rachel Dawson, representing Hannah Cole. I understand you've been discussing a caregiver agreement under false pretenses. This is absurd, Richard sputters, cracks showing in his polished exterior. Emily has been paralyzed for 11 years because Hannah failed to walk her to the bus. Everyone here knows the story. That's the story you told, I say, calm anchoring me now. But it's not what happened, is it? Marcus sets his recorder on the table. Richard and Linda Cole. I'm Marcus Bennett with the Denver Chronicle. I've been investigating your financial dealings tied to your daughter's care. How dare you, Linda spits, after everything we've done for Emily. Everything you've done? My laugh is sharp, humorless. You spent 11 years making me believe I destroyed her life. You drained my college fund, my inheritance, half my paycheck, while calling it my duty. The room falls silent. Eyes shift uncomfortably to the piles of papers in front of them. Pastor Graham's voice is careful now. These are serious accusations, Hannah. Yes, I answer, scanning the table of relatives, neighbors, elders. And every word is backed by proof. Rachel begins distributing manila folders, one for each person. Evidence arranged and undeniable. When she places the folder in front of Emily, I catch her eyes. Fear flickers there. And something else. Something closer to relief. Emily, I say softly, after 11 years, don't you think it's time for the truth? Her lips tremble. Tears rise. She whispers so faint I almost miss it. I've carried this for so long. Inside her folder are photographs. Images of her with Kyle Mercer on his motorcycle the morning of the accident. Gasps ripple through the room. Rachel lays the final folder in front of Pastor Graham. Inside, the police report, sworn witness statements, notarized financial records, proof laid bare. The accident happened 3.8 miles from the bus stop, I state clearly. On a motorcycle, against her parents' rules. That's the truth. Uncle Robert flips through the papers, his face blanching. This says, the accident had nothing to do with missing the bus. Nothing whatsoever, I confirm. Aunt Laura's voice shakes but carries. I was there. I overheard Richard tell Linda not to let anyone know Emily was with that boy. They made up the bus stop story before she even went into surgery. Silence swallows the room. Every face turns toward my parents. Pastor Graham finally breaks it, his voice sharp with disbelief. Is this true, Richard? But no words come. Linda's lips compress into a bloodless line. Richard's jaw tightens, but his eyes dart, his mask cracking under the weight of truth he cannot contain. The silence is heavier than any denial could ever be. The silence that follows the flood of documents is so sharp it feels alive, breathing down the back of my neck. Then a voice breaks it. Small at first, trembling, almost lost in the weight of everything unsaid. I skipped the bus, Emily Cole whispers. Her words tremble, but with each breath they steady. I wanted to ride with Kyle Mercer. Mom and Dad always said you'd be blamed, Hannah, because you were supposed to be watching me. Her eyes rise, locking on mine across the table. They shine wet, but there's something else in them. A raw courage that hasn't surfaced in 11 years. I let them do this to you. For 11 years, I stayed silent. The tears pressing against my own eyes threatened to break free, but I forced them back. This moment isn't about my release. Not yet. I'm sorry, Emily, I say, my hand reaching across the table but stopping short of hers. I would have helped you anyway. You never needed to lie. A rustle runs through the room, chairs shifting, relatives leaning forward. The church elders who moments ago carried stern judgment now wear uneasy expressions, their certainty unraveling. Pastor Graham closes his Bible with a soft thud, his voice grave. We all need to review these documents carefully. This cannot be ignored. Marcus Bennett steps forward, recorder steady in his hand. His tone is clinical, but the edge of purpose is there. I'd like to ask a few questions about the church fund that was supposedly created for Emily's treatments. The atmosphere shifts. The smug confidence that once clothed Linda Cole and Richard Cole now crumbles into stiff, defensive silence. For the first time, fear replaces control. And then Emily's voice cracks open the air. She bursts into sobs, shoulders shaking, words spilling like a dam giving way. I begged Kyle not to tell anyone. I was 14 and scared of getting in trouble. When Mom and Dad blamed Hannah, I couldn't contradict them. I thought it would ruin everything, so I stayed quiet. Year after year, I let her carry it for me. Her hands grip the wheels of her chair as she moves forward, into the center of the room. Her face is streaked with tears, but her voice has steel now. I let you carry this burden for 11 years, Hannah. And I'm sorry. The transformation in the room is immediate. Uncle Robert's jaw tightens with anger. But the anger is not at me. It's fixed squarely on Richard. Aunt Sarah rises from her chair and crosses to my side, her hand finding mine. For the first time in years, I feel family warmth that isn't poisoned by guilt. Pastor Graham straightens, his voice sharp with moral outrage. This betrayal. It goes against everything our community stands for. You manipulated not only your daughters, but your church family. Elder Peterson, usually quiet, rises slowly. His voice carries weight. The church fund was meant for Emily's treatments, not your mortgage, not your debts. All eyes turn to Linda and Richard. Their faces are pale, their bodies small against the weight of truth pressing in. The power they wielded for so long, the shame, the guilt, the manipulation, evaporates in minutes. Marcus's recorder captures it all. He leans toward me, voice low. I have everything I need for a comprehensive story about family fraud. I kneel beside Emily's chair, my voice breaking despite my control. I never abandoned you, Emily. I just couldn't live with their lies anymore. Her trembling hand reaches for mine, fingers curling tight. I knew it was wrong, she says through sobs. I was just too scared to speak up. Can you ever forgive me? I pull her into an embrace, her shoulders heaving against me. There's nothing to forgive. We were both victims. The room is still, watching. Elder Peterson clears his throat. The church board will investigate the misuse of donated funds, every penny. Rachel Dawson steps forward, her voice measured but clear. For everyone's clarity, Hannah Cole has never had a legal obligation to support her sister financially. Not then, not now. Pastor Graham nods solemnly. And moving forward, we will ensure proper oversight of any support provided for Emily's care. The verdict lands not in a courtroom, but in this room where lies once ruled. Linda and Richard stand, together but smaller than they've ever seemed. Linda reaches for her purse. Richard slips his keys into his pocket. I think we're done here, Richard says flatly, his voice stripped of charm. No one moves to stop them. No one offers a goodbye. Their footsteps echo down the hall, the door clicking shut behind them like the closing of a tomb. The silence they leave behind is heavy, but not crushing, not anymore. Emily squeezes my hand. Her voice is barely a whisper. What happens now? I look around at those who stood with me today. Rachel, unwavering. Marcus, recorder still running. Aunt Laura, finally free to tell the truth. Pastor Graham, shaken but resolute. Now, I tell her, we start over, with the truth. The sunlight streaming through the dining room window catches her tears. But for the first time in 11 years, they shine not with shame, but with hope. 3 weeks later, I unlock the door to Emily's new apartment and push it wide. She wheels herself across the threshold, her eyes widening as golden sunlight spills over the hardwood floors. The space is modest but perfect. Lowered countertops, a roll-under sink, wide doorways, a bathroom she can finally move through without squeezing or bumping. Is this mine? Emily's voice is light, filled with a wonder I haven't heard since we were kids. All yours, I say, setting down the box in my arms. The insurance settlement covered the first year's rent and the modifications. No more asking permission to adjust your space. She rolls across the kitchen, her hand brushing the countertops like she's testing if they're real. Her shoulders are straighter these days. The curve of apology she carried for so long is slowly uncoiling. Dad called me again last night, she says, stopping at the window that overlooks a small community garden. He sounded desperate. They should be worried, I answer, unpacking plates into low cabinets. Pastor Graham told me the church board started their investigation, and that's not even counting the insurance fraud charges. She nods, her expression complicated, tangled between relief and grief. 11 years of lies unraveling in 2 weeks. My phone buzzes, a text from Rachel, financial guardianship papers approved. I show Emily the message. No more intercepted checks, no more diverted funds. Everything goes directly to you now. Her smile is soft but radiant. She wheels to the couch and I join her. Have you been sleeping? She asks suddenly. The question startles me. Actually, yes, I admit, for the first time in years. Last night I slept 8 hours straight. No dreams, no guilt, no hearing your voice crying out for me. She exhales, almost laughing. I keep waking up thinking I need to call them. Then I remember I don't have to answer to anyone anymore. Her eyes glimmer. Yesterday I applied for disability benefits, the ones they told me I'd never qualify for. The ones they said required my support? She nods, laughing through her tears. Exactly those. Turns out I've been eligible for a decade. I smile, opening another box labeled kitchen. And I enrolled in the nurse practitioner program. Her eyes widen. The one you've dreamed about for years? Starting next semester, I say, my voice firm. Without $2,000 disappearing from my paycheck every month, I can finally afford tuition. and a small apartment near campus. The golden afternoon deepens as we unpack side by side. Later, 3 of my coworkers arrive, carrying food and more boxes. Marcia, my charge nurse, hugs me tightly. "We've started a rotating schedule," she says, "to help Emily with anything she needs while you're in class." Everyone volunteered. Emily's eyes brim with tears as she's enveloped in their warmth. I never knew how many people cared. When the door finally closes behind them, we step onto her small patio. The evening air is cool, crickets chirping from the garden below. For the first time in years, I don't feel the heaviness of obligation pressing on me. This place is light, open, alive. "For so long," I whisper, watching a hummingbird dart through the flowers Marcia brought. "I thought caring meant carrying everyone's burdens until I broke. But real care, it's helping someone stand on their own." Emily takes my hand gently. Her voice trembles but holds steady. "I should have told you the truth years ago." I squeeze her fingers. "We were both trapped, Emily, just in different cages." She leans against me, tears slipping down her cheeks. Not of shame this time, but of release. For the first time in 11 years, we sit together not as prisoner and jailer, not as guilty and silent, but as sisters. 6 months later, I stand in front of the whiteboard at Denver Memorial's Trauma Center, dry erase marker in hand, addressing a room full of nervous new nurses. The scrubs I wear are the same hospital blue I've worn for years, but I'm not the same woman who dragged herself through these halls half asleep, crushed by guilt. My apartment near campus is small, but alive with plants, books stacked on every surface, and sunlight that I finally have time to notice. My student loans are under control now, manageable instead of suffocating. And most importantly, the weight I carried for 11 years, the shame, the silence, the lie, has lifted. "Remember this," I tell the group, scanning their wide eyes. "Your first responsibility is to your patients. That means listening to them. That also means being willing to stand up to family members who claim to know what's best, but don't." There's a beat of silence as my words settle in. Some of the nurses nod slowly. Others scribble furiously in their notebooks. They don't know my history, not fully, but I can see the lesson land. After my shift, I drive across town to Emily Cole's apartment, our standing tradition for Thursday night dinners. The moment I push the door open, the smell of lasagna greets me. "Something smells good," I call, setting my bag down. Emily rolls into view from the kitchen, spatula in hand, wearing an apron dusted with flour. 3 A's so far," she says, pride coloring her voice before I even ask. I smile, shaking my head. "You're impossible. I didn't even get the question out." She grins, serving generous portions onto 2 plates. "The disability advocacy course is my favorite. I'm helping 2 families navigate the same system Mom and Dad manipulated. It feels like I'm undoing some of the damage." We sit at her accessible table, side by side, eating slowly, talking about futures instead of past betrayals. For the first time in years, our conversations aren't weighed down with unspoken guilt. When she mentions Linda and Richard Cole's latest attempt at reconciliation, I feel no twist of dread in my chest, no reflexive guilt, just clarity. I told them the same thing I always do, I say, cutting into the lasagna. If they ever want a relationship, it starts with taking full responsibility. Not just with me, but with the people they hurt. Until then, there's nothing to talk about. Emily nods, her expression steady. They're still stuck on family obligation and forgiveness without ever admitting what they did. It's their choice to stay blind. I shrug, leaning back. And my choice is simple. I don't need their permission to live my own life anymore. On the 1-year anniversary of the confrontation, Emily and I drive to the city park where I used to feed stray cats as a teenager. Autumn leaves crunch under her wheelchair tires as I push her along the winding path toward the clearing where the makeshift feeding station once stood. "Remember when I couldn't even look at cats without guilt?" I ask, carefully helping her navigate over a bumpy section of trail. She laughs, the sound unburdened. "And now look at us, building something instead of burying ourselves in blame." The Cole Sisters Foundation launched just a month ago, born from the settlement with our parents' insurance company. Already, we've helped 3 families navigate medical systems without falling prey to the same kind of exploitation. Grants for accessibility modifications, legal support to shield patients from financial abuse. Real, practical solutions. We aren't just healing ourselves anymore. We're making sure no one else has to live our nightmare. Later that evening, we attend Emily's physical therapy milestone celebration. The room is full of therapists and patients who've become her second family. She wheels herself to the treatment table, then, slowly, with measured effort, transfers from chair to table without a hand reaching out to steady her. Applause fills the room loud and warm. When she's asked to speak, Emily wheels to the center, her voice steady and clear. The hardest part wasn't the paralysis, she says. The heaviest burden was the lies. Silence falls, then a swell of clapping. Watching her own words set her free in front of others fills me with something I can only describe as completion. The truth didn't just set us free. It revealed who truly stood by us. Not Linda and Richard Cole, who demanded loyalty while poisoning it, but the community who believed in us once we finally spoke. As we walk back to the car after the celebration, Emily asks quietly, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Rachel Dawson hadn't asked about the police report?" I pause, considering. The parking lot glows under the streetlights, the night cool on our faces. "I think the truth would have clawed its way out eventually," I say. "It was too big to stay buried forever." We don't speak for a moment. The sound of traffic hums in the distance. Then she asks, "So, what would you do if you discovered a family member had been lying to you for years? Would you confront them head on, or gather your evidence first?" Her eyes search mine, not for advice, but for reflection. And in that question, I realize, our story isn't just ours anymore. It's a mirror held up for anyone who's lived under the weight of family lies. I take a long breath before answering. I'd gather the truth first. Then I'd make sure the world heard it. Because lies rot in silence. But truth survives anything.